Mike Hall here, CEO of Paul Fraser Collectibles and Just Collecting. Now, today I'd like to share with you a stamp. And it's a stamp that has a very interesting story behind it, one of my favourites. And it's all about the first transatlantic air post. Now, I love a stamp with a great story. It's what makes philately so interesting. Now, what's so important about the stamp I'm going to share with you today is there's four things that makes it very special. Now, firstly, it's considered as one of the world's greatest philatelic rarities. Now, secondly, it comes from a British Commonwealth country, which was the very first country to issue airmail post, making it the first of its kind. Now, thirdly, it's incredibly rare. There is only a maximum of 87 possible examples of this stamp, and the number of surviving examples is believed to be considerably less. Finally, it has a great story, which I'm now about to share with you. Now, this stamp tells of a bygone age when there was great bravery and pioneering. And it comes from a place called Newfoundland, which was the very first country to issue airmail stamps. Now, the Europeans first landed in Newfoundland in about AD 1000, and that's when the Vikings briefly settled there. It's possibly the first part of North America to be explored by Europeans. England claimed Newfoundland in 1583, and that was when Sir Humphrey Gilbert, the half-brother of Sir Walter Raleigh, he took control. But it wasn't until 1949 that Newfoundland finally agreed to become the 10th province of the Canadian Confederation. Now, Newfoundland Island, as you can see from this map, is the closest point in North America to Great Britain and to Europe. It's therefore no surprise that this became the focus of the early attempts at crossing the Atlantic by aircraft. It was on the 1st of April 1913 that the owner of the Daily Mail, Lord Northcliffe, put up a prize of £10,000, and that was for the first aviator to complete a non-stop flight over the Atlantic in under 72 hours. Now, what you need to understand is that back in 1913, £10,000 was a lot of money. And that was equivalent to about £250,000 in today's money, so it was an attractive prize. Now, the first attempted transatlantic flight from Newfoundland was by Harry George Hawker. He was the pilot. He was an Australian-born aviation pioneer. And the navigator was Kenneth Mackenzie Grieve. Now, this was the most famous flight of them all. The plane used by Hawker and Grieve was a single-engine Sopwith biplane. Now, the design was based on the Sopwith B-1, a bomber which was used during World War I. Just in case they ran into trouble over the Atlantic, the main section was modified to be used as a boat in an emergency. And one of the most exciting benefits of transatlantic flight would be the ability to carry mail in just a matter of hours, rather than the many days the journey took by boat. So naturally, the Newfoundland Post Office were enthralled by this prospect. And on April the 12th, 1919, they issued a limited edition overprinted stamp reading First Transatlantic Air Post, April 1919. Now, there were only 200 in total issued, but 18 proved defective, and they were destroyed. 95 of them were used in letters carried by Hawker and his navigator. Mostly these were addressed to prominent British peers and the royal family. Now, even one of them was addressed to His Majesty the King. Of the remaining 87 mint examples, 11 were presented as gifts to various officials, and 76 were sold for $25 each. Today, this airmail stamp is known by philatelists as the Hawker issue of Newfoundland. So back to the story. On May the 18th, 1919, at 6:45 p.m, Hawker and Mackenzie began their flight from Mount Pearl Flying Field at St. John's, Newfoundland. Now, unfortunately, the weather conditions were poor, with unexpected foggy weather. Now, they overcame the inclement weather challenge, and they were soon cruising over 100 miles an hour at about 10,000 feet. About 14 hours into the flight, though, the engine overheated, and the aviators followed a shipping lane in a hope to find a vessel they could ditch close to. Finally, matters became critical, and they spotted a Danish merchant ship, the Mary. It's a real testament to Hawker's skills that he managed to land safely on the water, which was about 750 miles short of their destination. Uh, Thankfully, both men were rescued. Unfortunately, though, the Mary didn't have any salvage gear, so the Sopwith, along with its bag of mail, was left floating in the Atlantic Ocean. It wasn't until 5 days later that the Sopwith was found by the SS Lake Charlottesville, and the mail was finally salvaged. The mail was then sent to London and put into the British postal system on the 30th of May. Despite the failure, the Daily Mail awarded these aviators a generous donation of £5,000 as a consolation prize. Both airmen were decorated with the Air Force Cross for Valour by King George V. Unfortunately, Hawker then died just 3 years later in a crash while taking part in an aerial derby. Now, the first successful non-stop transatlantic flight was made a month later in June by Captain John Alcock and Lieutenant Arthur Whitten Brown in a twin-engined ex-Royal Air Force Vickers Vimy bomber. It's now time for me to share with you the stamp. Now, this is the stamp which marks the very first transatlantic air post, the first of its kind. And it's miraculous that it survived in any condition, let alone in this fine mint condition. Now, it also has J.A. Robinson, the postmaster's initials on the back, as you can see. Now, I'll just put this, I'll let you have another look close. I'll put it somewhere safe. Now, as I said, there's only a maximum of 87 possible mint examples in existence and far fewer. The stamp comes with our lifetime guarantee of authenticity, as always. Now, let's talk about the price. So the Stanley Gibbons catalogue value is currently £22,000. I'm able to offer you this example today for the price of £19,500. Now, when you combine the stamp's rarity with historical importance, it's a very interesting purchase indeed, and I would suggest a good long-term investment. It's only actually the second time in my 23 years now in stamps that I've ever handled this stamp, and it really stands out in any collection, and it's just one of those great stamps that when you share it with someone, you can share the history behind it, as I've shared with you today. So if you're interested in taking the stamp from me, as sad as I see it to go, please contact me either at mike@paulfrasercollectibles.com. You can purchase it directly from our website, or you can contact us on the details below. If you happen to live in North America, this would be an opportunity for the stamp to find its way home. So thank you everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed this little story on this small piece of paper, which I thoroughly enjoyed sharing with you. Look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you very much.